Statutes Amendment Act 2009. Honourable Mr. Knight.
The Honourable Minister of Energy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And it is a pleasure for me to rise this afternoon, the Legislature, and move third reading of Bill 50, the Electric Statutes Amendment Act 2009. Mr. Speaker, I fully realize the importance of this piece of legislation, and I think that we have had a realization not only of the members of the Legislature here, but members of the public and members of the industry community in the province of Alberta, members engaged in commerce in the province of Alberta, that this issue is extremely important for all Albertans. I do appreciate, Mr. Speaker, that we've had an opportunity here to debate the merits of Bill 50. And, Mr. Speaker, I look forward again to additional comments of any members of the Assembly with relationship to this piece of legislation. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Speaker, I did move third reading.
The Honourable Member for Calgary-Curry.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I rise to join in third reading debate on Bill 50. This is a bill that we said from the outset we thought was a bad bill in principle. We tried to amend it and failed, and we still think it's a bad bill. And here's one reason why. The AESO is mandated to make sure that we have an unconstrained transmission system in the province of Alberta, to make sure that there is zero congestion anywhere in the system. Yesterday in Calgary, there was a meeting called the Alberta Power Summit. A number of people were there, the 10th annual Alberta Power Summit. And one of the speakers was Dr. Richard Tabers of Charles River Associates and MIT Lee's Laboratory, that's Massachusetts Institute of Technology. They know a thing or two about making the lights go on and stay on.
Yeah, they've assigned the system.
And I want to provide the House here with two quotes from his presentation. Quote number one: "You can never achieve an unconstrained transmission system even when you ignore the cost. Economic markets move far more quickly than engineering construction projects," end quote. And quote number two: "Nothing can be further from the truth than assuming that private sector generation will be built just because the government has invested billions of dollars in transmission. The decision of generators is based on far shorter-term corporate financial decisions," end quote. And we are talking here about billions of dollars, Mr. Speaker. We're talking anywhere from, in the absolute best-case scenario, maybe $5 billion, and the much more likely scenario, Mr. Speaker, is anywhere between $14 and $20 billion. This is a bad bill. It has failed a number of tests as far as I'm concerned. It has failed to provide for appropriate and responsible public input. It has failed to provide an objective basis for deciding what kinds of transmission infrastructure is or is not critical, what kinds of transmission infrastructure should or should not be built in the public interest and the public need. It has failed to take into consideration that there are options, there are alternatives to building these massive power lines that will deliver, I believe, will deliver power to the people at considerably lower cost than this version. And so I mentioned that we tried to amend this in committee. We brought in a sub-amendment to the government amendment that would have removed the sections that prevent the Alberta Utilities Commission from holding needs identification hearings on lines that the government has arbitrarily declared critical. That amendment failed. We looked at the government amendment with its willingness to, among other things, stage the construction of these critical transmission infrastructure lines, the ones identified in the schedule in the bill on page 11 of Bill 50, the ones that supposedly we cannot live without, and suddenly the government amendment says, well, we can live with some of them without some of them for a little longer than we can live without others, so we'll stage the building here. Of course, as I mentioned yesterday in the House, the government has not seen fit to tell us what the time intervals between the stages would be, so the whole thing might be a bit bogus. And so we tried to put a sunset clause through our second amendment, we try to put a sunset clause in effect into the bill and say, okay, let's assume, and it's a giant leap of faith, I believe, let's assume that the government really is correct in its assertion that we absolutely positively must have these particular critical high voltage power lines, or else the lights are going to go off and the sky is going to fall. Given that it has said that we can stage these, it has essentially telegraphed the message to any and all who would be involved in the planning, the proposal, the construction, the design of high voltage transmission lines, that there is time to get your act together and follow a planning process that will involve a needs identification hearing. And if you think you're going to need that power line 5 or 10 years down the road, best get organized and get things going now. And that got voted down as well. So, Mr. Speaker, we're back where we began when we started second reading debate on Bill 50. This is, we believe, a fatally flawed bill. It denies Albertans, big and small, the opportunity to be involved in the process of identifying whether these bills or whether these lines are needed, and then it turns around and sticks us with the bill for them, and sticks us with that bill for something on the order of 40 years. So we feel that we have no choice but to move that the motion for third reading of Bill 50, Electric Statutes Amendment Act 2009, be amended by deleting all the words after that and substituting the following. Bill 50, the Electric Statutes Amendment Act 2009, be not now read a third time, but that it be read a third time this day, 6 months hence.
Let
me take a copy for myself.
Think about it. Seriously. Say 30 seconds. Yeah.
Just a second, sir. It's all circulating for everybody.
Keep on over the holidays.
The honourable member for Calgary-Curry would concur that this is reviewed as a hoist amendment.
Yes.
First seat, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I will be brief as I proceed, because we have already given this bill extensive debate in this House. Those of us on the opposition benches, all parties in the opposition, have participated, I think, in a vigorous debate regarding the merits or lack thereof of this bill. We've had a difficult time, although not thoroughly pointless, but we've had a difficult time engaging members of the government. They have, to a person, those who have spoken, and not too many have, they've spoken in favor of the bill, despite the fact that we know, that they know, that there is tremendous popular opposition to this bill. There is enough popular opposition to this bill that the government brought in its own package of amendments designed to address some of those concerns, but clearly not the ones that we think and that the people who oppose this think are the most vital concerns. We tried to amend the government amendment because that's the process, the procedure that we have to go through as we make law in this assembly to make this very bad bill first a better bill, and then when that failed, a less bad bill. That second sub-amendment of ours was, by definition, a compromise. We did everything that we could do on this side of the House